Okay, let's talk about pips. I think this is such an interesting conversation. I know your face. I know. And when I was building out this season, I was like, do I want to go there? And I do. And it's because I think that people have to understand the mindset of managers to get to that point, right? So talk to me about PIPs. Those are performance improvement plans. Some companies have different names for them. But what is an employee doing to get to that point? Like, can they recover from it? Like, where are they at once they've gotten there?
Yeah, like can I was first gonna say, can we just skip this one? But I know we'll talk about it. I think, and this might be a little controversial. I don't know, but I kind of believe that if an employee has gotten to the point of a performance improvement plan, the manager hasn't done their job right. And I
Ooh.
mean, and the reason I say that, I'll explain like my thinking behind that. And you could totally disagree with me, or anybody listening can totally like throw me under the bus here with a different example. I get it. This is just one person's, kind of take on it. But I think managing, if you think of managing as coaching instead of managing, that's a huge
Mhm.
like it's it's just a mind flip of thinking like you're not managing a person. You are, or their work.
Right.
You are facilitating their growth as an employee. You're giving them tips and tricks and supports and how to be better. And so I think early on during the one-on-one syncs, you identify these areas of improvement unofficially. There's no plan in place. You, as a
Mhm.
manager, have identified them. You are transparent. It's tough. It's so tough to tell people things that are that they could do better at, or what you think they could do better at, or what,
Mhm.
all of that. And I think you need to make sure you document that in a safe
Mhm.
space, again, in that one-on-one doc, so that they have the same information that you do. And because the last thing you want to do is surprise them at the end with documentation that you've been taking. That just is gross to me. Like, what,
Yeah.
that's a gotcha mentality. And so if you're identifying those early on, you're transparent, you documenting them through the one-on-one shared doc, you're asking the hard questions, and you're giving them that feedback. I just feel like if the employees is not responding the way that you want, then you coach them out of the job. Like, you coach them to a different place in the company, you coach them to a
Right.
different team. Apparently this role with you is not the place for them. And so it's not that you have to get to the point where you like banging your head against the wall because they just won't do it. No, you start the conversation on like, okay, I've given you feedback about this. It's, you haven't done it. What doesn't work for you? And then you have that
Mhm.
conversation and they say, well, actually, I don't really like the work. And then it's like, oh, okay, now we're really getting to the root of why you're not doing X, Y, and Z, or you're doing X, Y, and Z. And so I think it's just about that coaching conversation and the right fit, so it doesn't fester into that performance improvement plan.
Okay, I love this, and I don't think that it's controversial. I know I made it sound like that initially. I really don't think it's controversial. I think that this is about accountability and ownership. And I talk about this so much on social media because so many companies are putting all of these like ridiculous, guidelines and things in place for people. And it has nothing to do with accountability. And I think that what you're talking about is managing with accountability, managing with grace, understanding your people, but also the employee has to come up in that as well. They have to acknowledge that something's not right. They have to be able to say, yeah, I don't like this, or this isn't working for me. But I feel like those conversations happen in a trusted relationship. And so if you're a manager and your employee is not responding well, then to me, again, as a manager, like there's something missing there. There's a
Mhm.
trust piece that has not been built with that person. And so now they're not going to give you the right information because likely they could be afraid of getting fired. They could have past experiences of being vulnerable and it not going well. like there are so many things that come into this, but I love that you're talking about management as coaching because I think that that's really where management has been heading and is continuing to go because again, we're all human and I think that that's going to be like the theme for this season. Like we are all human and we need to treat each other as
Yes.
but I do appreciate that so much because I think there are companies and managers where the pips become this like surprise thing. And it really just shouldn't be that way. And I think that's where like there's an onus on the manager and on the employee to have that communication together. And boo on companies that use it that way because that is what creates the anxiety and the toxic environments. And honestly, it creates workplace trauma for people that then gets transferred to other companies and other positions. And it's just like this terrible process. So I appreciate you bringing that up and kind of talking about that on both sides.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think also the once you cross that bridge into pip land, you're not going to be able to come back. As an employee, it's even if they quote unquote have it coming or whatever, that
Hmm.
relationship is now going to be basically severed because
Right.
it's like a, you're sent to the principal's office type situation. And so just be ready to be prepared for that. I think that was another lesson I've learned along the way is like not everyone's always going to be your friend, and in those instances you're
Hmm.
guaranteeing they're not going to be your friend after that. And that's, just be warned that that will adjust the relationship for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I would agree. I would agree. I think once you get the PIP or HR is involved in some way, the company is likely then going to be protecting itself depending on the situation and probably trying to get you
Yeah.
out in some capacity.
Yep.
But you never know. I mean, you could come back from it, but likely not. And at that point, you as an employee are probably already checked out anyway. And the PIP is just the thing that's going to push you even farther out. So